This is HOA meltdown moments. It started with a fence line and ended with a board meltdown. "I do not care what you think you paid," Laura yelled across the driveway, waving a printed diagram in my face like it was a warrant. Her scarf whipped sideways in the cold Minnesota breeze. She jabbed her finger at the ground near my property line. "That setback measurement is wrong, and I am choosing my own measurement." I stood there with a roll of caution tape looped over my wrist, my contractor's truck idling behind me, and I realized this fence project was about to become a nightmare. This is St. Paul, Minnesota, winter of 2025, and I live in a neighborhood governed by the Hidden Creek Ridge Association. I work nights as a fire alarm technician, which means my days are for errands, sleep, and apparently fighting an HOA over a fence I have not even built yet. Laura Williams is the neighborhood watch liaison, but she treats every resident like a suspect. She had shown up unannounced 10 minutes ago, right as my contractor was unloading posts and panels. Laura held up her diagram again. "This says 12 feet from the curb. I am telling you it needs to be 15. I pulled out my own survey, the one I paid an actual licensed surveyor to produce 3 weeks ago. The survey says 12 feet is compliant. The city says 12 feet. The HOA covenant says 12 feet minimum. I am at 12 and a half. She shook her head, blonde ponytail swinging. "I do not need proof. I have paperwork and vibes." That line became her favorite phrase over the next few weeks, and it would come back to haunt her in the worst possible way. My contractor, a guy named Mike who has been building fences in the Twin Cities for 15 years, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we have permits. We have the survey. We are good to go." Laura turned to him. "I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it." She pulled out her phone and walked a few steps away, already dialing. Mike looked at me. "You want to wait, or do we start?" I checked the time on my phone. My contractor has another job tomorrow, and if today collapses, I lose my spot on his schedule. That time pressure was real. Mike is booked solid through March, and I had already postponed once because of a supply delay. If we did not pour concrete today, I would be stuck with no fence and an open backyard all winter. "Let's start," I said. "We are compliant. She can yell all she wants." Mike and his crew began marking the line with spray paint and string. I stood near the property corner, holding my surveyor's drawing and a clipboard with color-coded sticky notes labeled by dates. I keep detailed records because my job requires background checks, and I cannot afford any kind of blemish on my record. One notice, one lien, one unpaid fine. And I could lose clearance for certain sites. So I document everything: emails, phone calls, certified mail receipts, timestamps. Laura returned 5 minutes later. "Management is sending someone. You need to stop work immediately." I shook my head. "We are permitted. We are compliant. I am not stopping." Her face went red. "Fine. I am filing a violation notice as of right now, 10:47 a.m. She scribbled something on her clipboard, then took a photo of my contractor's truck with her phone. "That invoice packet you have sitting in your car? I am documenting that as proof of an unapproved project." I stared at her. The invoice packet was just a manila folder with receipts and the permit copy. There was nothing unapproved about it. But Laura had a way of twisting anything into ammunition. Mike kept working. We dug the first post hole near the back corner of my lot. The ground was half frozen, and every shovelful came up in hard clumps. Laura paced along the property line, taking more photos, muttering into her phone. Then, the property manager arrived. His name was Derek, a guy in his 40s with a forced smile and a Hidden Creek Ridge Association polo. He walked up holding his own clipboard, glancing between me and Laura. Derek cleared his throat. "So what is the issue here?" Laura jumped in before I could speak. He is violating setback. I measured it myself. It is too close to the curb. I handed Derek my survey. This is from a licensed surveyor. 12.5 feet. Compliant with city code and the HOA covenant. Derek studied it for a moment, then looked at Laura. This looks fine to me. Laura snatched the survey out of his hands. You did not measure it. I did. And I am telling you, it is wrong. Derek sighed. Laura, if he has a licensed survey, we cannot override it with a tape measure. She crossed her arms. Then I am escalating this to the board. And I am putting a hold on the project until the board reviews it. Derek looked uncomfortable. I cannot do that without a formal violation hearing. Laura smiled. Then Schedule 1. Today. That was escalation step 1. Laura triggered a gate access glitch that same afternoon. I came home from a quick run to the hardware store, and my gate fob would not work at the neighborhood entrance. I had to call the management office and wait 20 minutes for them to reset it. Derek apologized, said it was a system error. But the timing was too perfect. Laura had access to the gate system as part of her neighborhood watch role, and I was certain she had flagged my account. That evening, I got an email from the Hidden Creek Ridge Association. Formal hearing scheduled for Monday, 9 a.m. to review alleged setback violation. Attendance mandatory. Failure to appear will result in automatic fine of $500 and immediate stop work order. Monday was 3 days away. Mike had already poured 2 post footings and framed the first section. If they forced a stop work, the concrete would set and we would lose the ability to adjust anything. I called Mike. Can we finish before Monday? He hesitated. Maybe. But if they hit us with a stop work order while we are in the middle of it, I cannot keep going. I could lose my contractor license. I understood. So we kept working through the weekend. We set 6 posts, poured concrete, and started hanging panels. Laura came by twice a day, taking photos, making notes on her clipboard. She never spoke to me directly, just documented everything like she was building a case. Sunday afternoon, someone tampered with my survey stakes. I had placed 4 bright orange stakes along the property line, each one marking a corner or midpoint. When I came outside after a nap, 2 of them were gone and 1 was snapped in half, lying in the grass 10 feet away. I immediately checked my doorbell camera. The footage showed a figure in a dark coat walking onto my property around 2 p.m., pulling up the stakes and snapping one. The person's face was not visible, but the build and gait looked a lot like Laura. I saved the clip to 3 separate drives. Then, Laura sent an email to the entire neighborhood group chat, claiming that I had damaged HOA common area landscaping by placing unauthorized markers. She included a photo of the broken stake, implying I had done it myself to stage some kind of dispute. She blamed me for the vandalism of my own survey stakes. That email went out to 200 residents. I replied with a calm correction and attached a screenshot of my doorbell timestamp showing the figure approaching my property. I did not accuse anyone by name, just stated the facts. But Laura's email stayed up on the group chat for hours before the moderator finally took it down. Monday morning, I showed up at the HOA clubhouse exterior walkway at 8:50 a.m. The hearing was supposed to be in the community room, but when I arrived, the door was locked. A handwritten note taped to the glass said, "Hearing moved to board president's office." No address. I called Derek. "Where is the board president's office?" He sounded confused. "What?" "The hearing is in the community room at 9. I sent him a photo of the note. He went quiet for a moment, then said he would call me back. 10 minutes later, Derek called back. Laura scheduled a separate meeting without telling me. The official hearing is still here at 9. Come inside. I walked into the community room. 3 board members sat at a folding table: Laura, the board president, and the treasurer. Derek stood off to the side with his clipboard. There were no other residents present. The board president, a man in his 60s, opened a binder. "We are here to review the setback violation filed by Laura Williams. Mr. He glanced at a paper. "You are accused of building a fence that violates the 12-foot setback requirement." I placed my survey on the table. This survey, conducted by a licensed professional, shows my fence is 12.5 feet from the curb. I am compliant. Laura leaned forward. "That survey is wrong. I measured it myself with a tape measure. It is 11 feet, 2 inches. I pulled out my clipboard with color-coded sticky notes. I have photos from every stage of construction, time-stamped. I have the city permit. I have emails confirming the setback requirement. I have the surveyor's certification. I placed each document on the table, one by one." The board president looked uncomfortable. "This all seems in order." Laura interrupted. "He also damaged common area property by placing unauthorized markers." I pulled out my phone and played the doorbell camera clip on mute, showing the figure pulling up my stakes. I submitted this footage to the police yesterday. I filed a report for vandalism and trespassing. The officer said they would follow up. Laura's face went pale. "That is not." She started, then stopped. The treasurer, a woman in her 50s, spoke up. "Laura, did you go onto his property?" Laura stammered. "I was inspecting the setback line. I have the authority to do that." The board president frowned. "Not without notice, and not to remove private property." "I did not remove anything," Laura snapped. "He is lying." I stayed calm. The timestamp does not lie, and I have 3 backups of the footage. Derek cleared his throat. "I think we should table this until we have more information." Laura stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. He is the one in violation. I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it." That was the second time she used her catchphrase in front of witnesses, and it would become important later. The hearing ended with no decision. The board president said they would reconvene in 2 weeks, but Laura was not done. That afternoon, I got a notice placed on my car windshield, tucked under the wiper. It was an HOA violation sticker, bright yellow with a checklist of infractions. Someone had checked the box for unauthorized construction and written a note in the margin: "Stop work immediately," or "Face towing and fines." I took a photo of the sticker, then peeled it off and added it to my evidence folder. I had not moved my car in 2 days, which meant someone had walked into my driveway specifically to place that sticker. Laura's method was becoming clear. She was using notices, stickers, and access restrictions to provoke reactions and document them as further violations. That same week, the twist revealed itself. I was reviewing old HOA emails to check the timeline of my fence permit application, and I noticed something odd. The violation notice Laura had filed, the one dated 10:47 a.m. on the day we started construction, had a timestamp in the email metadata that did not match. The email system showed it was created 3 days earlier, then edited and sent on the construction day. I dug deeper. I found 2 other notices in my file that had similar discrepancies. One was dated the day after I submitted my fence application, but the metadata showed it was created a week later. Another was dated the day I received my city permit, but it was actually created 5 days after that. Laura and the HOA management had been backdating notices to manufacture late fees and create a paper trail that made me look non-compliant. That was the twist. Management has been backdating notices to manufacture late fees, and it was not just happening to me. I checked the neighborhood group chat archives and found at least 3 other residents complaining about surprise fines for violations they never received notice of. I contacted an attorney who specializes in HOA disputes. She reviewed my evidence folder and confirmed that backdating official notices is a violation of Minnesota HOA law. It is fraud, she said. If you can prove it, you have grounds for a lawsuit, and you can force an independent audit. But I did not want to go straight to court. I wanted to handle this at the hearing, in front of witnesses, and let the consequences unfold naturally. So I prepared my trump card. I did not play my hand yet, and she thought that meant I had none. I kept quiet about the backdated notices, the metadata screenshots, and the doorbell footage showing Laura on my property. I let Laura think she was winning. If you are enjoying this HOA chaos, smash that like button and subscribe for more real neighborhood drama. The next board meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks later, and I spent that time gathering more proof. I recorded every interaction with Laura. I logged every time my gate fob glitched. I took photos of every sticker, notice, and clipboard she brought near my property. And I reached out to the other residents who had complained about surprise fines. One of them, a guy named Tom who lived 3 streets over, had a similar story. He had installed a patio cover last summer and received a violation notice 2 months after completion, claiming he never got approval. But Tom had emails showing he submitted his application in April, received approval in May, and completed the work in June. The violation notice was dated May 15th, right in the middle of the approval window, but the metadata showed it was created in August. Tom agreed to submit his evidence at the same hearing. So did another resident, a woman named Claire, who had been fined for a mailbox replacement that was supposedly never approved, even though she had a signed approval letter from Derek. The day before the hearing, Laura tried one more escalation. I came home from work at 6 a.m., exhausted from a 12-hour shift installing fire alarms at a hospital in Minneapolis, and found a tow truck in my driveway. The driver was hooking up my car. I ran over. "What are you doing?" The driver handed me a clipboard. "I have an authorization from the HOA. Your vehicle is parked in violation of overnight guest parking restrictions." I stared at the form. "This is my driveway. I own this house." He shrugged. "I just go by the paperwork. You need to call the HOA." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I took of Laura placing the yellow sticker on my windshield 3 days ago. I also showed him the doorbell footage of Laura on my property, pulling up survey stakes. And then I showed him the metadata screenshots of the backdated notices. "This is harassment," I said. "And if you tow my car based on fraudulent paperwork, you are part of it." The driver looked at the evidence, then at the authorization form, then back at me. He unhooked my car. "You need to sort this out with them. I am not touching this." That was the evidence reveal. I showed the tow driver the proof before the hook goes on, and he refuses. The tow truck left. I filed another police report. The final hearing took place the next morning at the HOA clubhouse exterior walkway, just outside the main entrance, because the community room was locked again and Laura refused to unlock it. The board president, Derek, Laura, and about 15 residents gathered on the concrete walkway under overcast skies. It was cold, windy, and uncomfortable, which made everyone impatient. The board president tried to start the meeting indoors, but Laura insisted we stay outside because she claimed I had made threats, and she did not feel safe in an enclosed space. That was a lie, and several residents called her out on it immediately. "Fine," the board president said. "We will do this out here. Let's make it quick." I laid out my evidence on the hood of my car, the survey, the permits, the photos, the timestamp logs, the doorbell footage, and the metadata screenshots showing the backdated notices. Tom and Claire stood beside me with their own evidence. Then I played my trump card. I pulled up a timestamped video clip I had saved from the neighborhood security camera system. The HOA has cameras at the main gate and several common areas, and residents can request footage through Derek. I had requested footage from the day Laura filed her first violation notice, and the clip showed Laura standing at the gate kiosk, using the management tablet to create and backdate a notice entry. I submit it as a formal exhibit at the hearing and watch Karen's face change. Laura went from angry to pale in about 3 seconds. She tried to speak, stumbled over her words, then said, "That does not prove anything." The board president froze the clip on his phone. "Laura, this shows you manually changing the date field on a violation entry. Why would you do that?" Laura looked around, desperate. I was correcting an error. The system glitched. Tom stepped forward. "I have the same issue. My notice was backdated by 2 months. That is not a glitch." Claire held up her approval letter, and mine. I was fined for something I had written approval for, and the notice was created weeks after the fact. Derek spoke up, his voice tight. "I never authorized backdating. If this happened, it was done without my knowledge." Laura pointed at me. "He is manipulating the footage. He is lying." The board president shook his head. "Laura, this is from the HOA system. We can verify it." A funny karma moment happened right then. Laura pulled out her phone to show her own evidence, a screenshot of the neighborhood group chat where she had posted about my alleged violation. But when she opened the chat, the post was gone. Someone, probably the group moderator, had removed it and replaced it with a correction explaining that the post contained false accusations and had been removed per community guidelines. Laura stared at her phone, speechless. Her own group post got removed and replaced with a correction, the exact consequence I had hoped for. The board president called for a vote. All in favor of dismissing the violation and launching an independent audit of HOA notice procedures? Every hand went up except Laura's. Laura tried one last move. She claimed the vote was invalid because not enough board members were present. But the board treasurer pulled out the HOA bylaws and read aloud the quorum rule, which we had met. Laura had been using the rulebook as a weapon for so long that she forgot it could be used against her. That afternoon, the Hidden Creek Ridge Association hired an independent auditor to review all notices, fines, and violation records from the past 2 years. The audit took 3 weeks. The results were damning. 37 notices had been backdated, affecting 22 residents, resulting in over $18,000 in improper fines and late fees. The HOA was forced to issue refunds. An independent audit finds improper late fees tied to notices, and the HOA is forced to refund a large batch of charges across the neighborhood. Laura was removed from the board. She tried to fight it, claimed she was being targeted, but the evidence was overwhelming. Derek kept his job, but he was placed on probation and required to implement a new digital notice system with automatic timestamps that could not be edited. A week later, a board election challenge was launched by a group of residents, including Tom and Claire, and that flipped the power dynamic. The new board president, elected by a landslide, immediately moved to change the hearing rules so residents could not be railroaded by single board members acting alone. The new policy required 2 board members to sign off on any violation, and all hearings had to be recorded. Laura kept a low profile for a few months, then moved out of Hidden Creek Ridge entirely. I heard she bought a condo in a building with no HOA. Good for her. My fence was completed in early March. It is exactly 12.5 feet from the curb, fully compliant, and it looks great. Mike did an excellent job, and I tipped him extra for dealing with the chaos. Every time I look at it, I think about that clipboard with color-coded sticky notes, the metadata screenshots, and the moment Laura realized her own system had turned against her. I still work nights as a fire alarm technician. I still keep detailed records of everything. And I still live in a neighborhood with an HOA. but now it is one that actually follows its own rules. Thank you, and I will catch you in the next one.